Hi, my name is Neka. Welcome back. Like I mentioned in the prior part of this recording, we have basically tried to concatenate two parts of code. The part that deals with the back-end database, which we had developed initially, and a more user-friendly GUI which we have developed in this application. To all intents and purposes, the selections you make on a GUI are simply selections of data, and so when we make a choice, we are asking the application to make a note of the choices we made. So if it were any other language, everything would be constant, but because of the vagaries and the peculiarities of ABAP, everything is not a constant. For the moment, I would not look at the tables. I would simply try and explain how the interface was developed. And so, like I was saying, we did have a menu which had city names, and the city names are identified in the table by 3-letter characters. So NYC for New York, TYO for Tokyo, and so on and so forth. And just like I have here, I have also the names of the buttons. Unfortunately, my code is not in any particular order. I just group stuff together. So we have the menu names, we have the buttons, we have the airlines, and I would like to make a note to say that we could simply say menu items and push buttons, and then like we have here, radio buttons. So these are the selections for the different airlines, and this would be economy or business, and we have daytime or nighttime flight, and this would be the selections we make. Now when a selection is made, we need a variable to hold the selection, and so when we make a selection for city from, we need to put it somewhere. So we put it in city from data variable, and city to, and so on and so forth. So there are as many variables also for the different selections we have made. Now what I also did was, for instance, here for the airline we have JAA for American Airlines, which is what it's called in the database, and we have a comment here saying American Airlines, and I also have variables to hold that kind of information. So every possible information we make a selection on, we need a variable to hold it, and this is where the magic happens. Actually, when we load the first screen, it makes a call to screen 100, which is the name of the screen, because like I showed in the, oh gosh, don't tell me I have been logged out. I have been logged out. Oh, I have not been logged out. Great. Okay, so like I demonstrated in the earlier presentation, I have 3 screens: 100, 200, 300. Now if we save, yeah, sure, why not? If we, okay, let's go back. So this is screen 100. So there are 2 ways to get to the customization screen for screen 100, the first screen. We can either double click this, or we can click on 100. They both take us there. SAP is object oriented, which means that every single thing you deal with is an object, and so it has to be activated. And so prior to activating, this code was disabled, and once it's activated by simply uncommenting, then it would be active. In fact, as a demonstration, I can say create, and this is where I would create a screen. So instead of 100, I could create screen 400 for instance, or screen 115 if I wanted another screen in between screen 100 and screen 200 or whatever. But I will not be doing that now because I do not want to mess up a good thing. So that would be the way to create a screen, and then you would have access to all this information and you can go on from there. So we'll look at the attributes tab. Now there are two ways to go through a multiple screen application. You could put the number here. In other words, if we wanted this application to go from screen 100 to screen 200, we could simply type next screen 200. But we don't want to do that because we want the application to flow through the code. And so if we go back to the code, yes, save. Hopefully we haven't made too many changes that we cannot recover from. Oops. Okay, so if you go back to where we were, so we'll go back to call to screen 100 and explain the logic of the code. So we've declared all these variables, and then when we make a call to screen 100, this is very familiar code if we looked at the previous example. What happens is, if we recall, we come to a screen that has a menu selection, and so we make a menu selection. So when we make a menu selection, what happens is the menu we have selected is held in syscom, another ABAP quirk. And so what we are trying to do is to find out which menu we selected. So case syscom, sysucom, cucom, whatever. So what happens is, we are saying when we go through the case statement, tell us what we selected. If we selected NYC, if we selected TYO, if we selected FRA, then do stuff, which is simply calling another routine, perform from NYC. And so you're asking, okay, what is this code running? Yes, we will get to that. So we'll simply go again to screen 100. Oops, where am I clicking my right? Okay, and then oh gosh, DynaPro. So screen 1 is linked to DynaPro, and screen 2, the second screen, screen 200, is linked to DynaPro 1. I know it doesn't make logical sense, but yeah, that's it. So the screen has an object, the menu environment, and so we did customize the menu. So we have a menu bar, we double click, and the name of the menu, the label on the menu is city from. And then when we click city from, we now see the various items on the menu. Now this is the code literally, and these are the cities that get displayed. These are the menu items. So when you click on New York, you are actually telling the application that I just selected NYC, and then when you click on TYO, you're telling the application that you selected Tokyo. And so if we actually did a screen capture, I hope all this shows up on video. I have no idea, I have never tried this before. And so we are looking at this. We'll keep this by the side and we'll go back to the code. You will notice here, so simply what we are saying is, this is the label. Oops, can we see? Oh shoot, let's maybe change the color of our pen to red. Can we make it bigger? We cannot make our pen bigger. It's a customized tip. Round. Okay. and then what is the color? Red. And it goes back to a small pen again. Okay, let's see. Round pen. Okay, let's pick red. Okay. And so what we're saying here is when we click on the menu item New York, this code runs because NYC is the code. Now we know, I hope, that when it's within single quote, it means it's a string, so it will not do to type N small letter Y small letter C. It literally has to be the same thing. So you're saying this is selected, that is selected, and so on and so forth. And so that is that for that. And so that's what happens in this menu from city from and city to. It's the same menu. Now no, I don't want to save that. So what happens, it'll perform these for each selection. Either of these will be performed. Now we can go to, oops, can't we go? Okay, we can go and see what perform from New York or from to New York is. Now you will notice that it's the same code, except the function called when a menu item is selected is this is from, this is to. Not very imaginative, but you get the logic here. So this is for screen 1, this is for screen 2. So this is all that runs when the first screen and the second screen is selected. Now essentially what I do in this form functions is to set a variable for the city that was selected and set a name for the city. So I know that New York was selected. I know the text. I put New York City in a variable. Same thing in the from. In the to, I put New York and Tokyo or some other Singapore, Rome, whatever, in a variable, so it holds the cities that were selected. As we scroll down, we will take a look at it, but it's fairly simplistic. Now for the rest of the application, everything happens in the third screen. So if we recall, I would like us to, okay, let's just let's activate. Let's hope we haven't broken the code. Let's run. So city from, so this is what I'm talking about. So if you select Singapore, Singapore gets selected, and if you select from gets selected. Now again, I'll take a screenshot of this, so as I explain, I can make reference to the screen. And so we'll keep this aside for the moment, and then we'll do /n, and we'll go back. Oops, maybe I should have just run it. So change. Okay, so where are we? We've gone through screen 1, we've gone through screen 2, and now we're on screen 3. So first off, we select an airline. So you would note, instead of using sysucom here, we are now using, why is my cursor misbehaving? We are now using an if statement. We're using an if statement because of the way the radio buttons work. For the menu item, when a selection is made, it's saved in sysucom. For a radio button, I guess because this is ABAP's implementation of a boolean, since each of these items is a radio button, you want to know if it's set or not. So the default, of course, is that American Airlines is set, and so if we wanted to set all airlines, then a different radio button will be set. And because when it's created as a group, for all the radio buttons in a group, only one of them would be selected. In other words, if this is selected, it's like set to 1, and if the rest are set to 0. And if another one is selected, immediately that selection is toggled off or on. depending on the state. Now in regular 4G language, that will be a Boolean variable, but in ABAP, it's the radio button takes an X. So simply what we've done is we've gone through all the variables and said if the radio button is set to X, then we have the airline. So again, I'm simply assigning the airline to the variable air name. Not very much native, I know. And so that's all I've done. If, else, if. And for the last statement, which is all airlines, if it's all, it sets it to all airlines. In actual fact, because AirCell for airline selection is actually a 2-character variable, it actually checks for AL, but I had to put the ALL so I could understand what I was doing, but it simply selects AL. Okay, so that's that. So but again, this last line here, I put it in simply so that it will sync with my previous code, because in my previous code for the previous project that just had parameters and linked to a table, I use from, and so I just reassigned the variable. Okay, so that's that. So that's how the airline gets selected, and it's simply the same logic for the class and for the whether it's a daytime flight or a nighttime flight. And so if we go further down, that's simply what we've done. We've gone through the process of selecting the class and selecting if it's a daytime or a nighttime flight. And to all intents and purposes, selections have been made. So in my code, I've simply gone on to prepare my header for my reports. So, but the first thing I did was to say, if you selected the same menu item in the to and the from field, tell me that you can do that. Your city of origin and destination cannot be the same. Try again later. Okay, so that's some form of error checking on my part. So if that's not the case, then hey, by all means, let's go ahead and run some code. And so if everything is good, then we've made all our selections. So what is left is to click a button. And so what I've done here is, again, the buttons also work like the menu item. Now, because on the screen only one button is selected, that the value of that button is in syscom again. And so when the first button is selected, all flights is selected, I have set a variable to all flights. If earliest flight is selected, I set the value of this variable to earliest flight. So I have some information about the button selected. That's the first step. And then the next step is to perform all flights. So for each of these functions, what they do is they now go ahead and perform the query for the particular selection in question. So when all that is done, then the report is ready to be spit out. And so this is my formatting of the report. I have color, I have my date and my time, I have my name, I have a heading information, which is called, by the way, by right header A, which hasn't been called yet. And so Now that we explained how we get to the query stage, I guess it will be time for us to take a look at some of the forms. So we would look at form from New York and maybe from to New York to see exactly what happens. And so if we go down and pretend we didn't see all this, my code. Yeah, because it's in reverse, because I put the code that was developed last on top, because that's the way I write my code. And so this is from New York, so we notice all it does is assign a variable, and that's all. That's all it does. Very simple. And then, so we've done this menu. So the next thing is to look at what we call when we press a button. To all intents and purposes, all the buttons work alike, so it will suffice to just look at all flights. And so when all flights is selected, where is that code? Where is that? Oh, come on. Oh, my touchpad. Okay, so when all flights is selected, I call perform all flights. Now, because I don't know where the heck this is, I'll simply go and find it. So this is perform all flights right under the forms run by the menu items. So perform all flights, what it does is it calls from all flights, which writes the header, which gets the data, which writes the report. And I hope it's somewhat clear that the rest of the code here would be for the rest of the button. So this would be for earliest flight. I am a bit lazy, so I didn't write out earliest flight. So from early, we'll do the same thing. It will call the same code called here, and it will perform get data for early. And the same thing occurs here for the quickest flight. It will call from quickie, and it will perform the same header, and it will perform get all flights quick, and it will write the same report. And the same thing goes on and on and on and on and on. All right, now I said the forms for GUI ends here because the rest of the code down here is auto-generated within the ABAP environment for the different objects created: the screen, the menu, etc., and the title. So every screen has a title. And so that's all she wrote. So we will just look at these pieces of code very briefly. So write header all. Oops. Write header all. We'll highlight it and we'll find it. A bit more efficient than. Oh, come on. You're kidding me? Okay, form write header all. So what this does, again, we do some coloring, and then I guess this is a good time to do another screenshot. So this would be the buttons, earliest, all flights, earliest, quickest, cheapest. And so we are now going to do another screenshot. So let's say Singapore to Rome, all flights, and then we pick all flights. Oops, doesn't look so pretty because we didn't run it on a full screen. So let's do it again. Singapore to Rome and all flights. Okay, so we will do a screen capture again so we can explain what we have. Do we need to capture all that? Okay, and so having captured that screen, we'll go ahead and explain our report. Now this would be, we have already looked at part of the report, which is right header A, and you may well ask, when does right header A get called? So we'll do Control F and find next. So that's the form. So so perform header A is okay. So every time, again, because the code simply falls through, when you click, it responds, and then it goes to the next code, it goes to the next code, because we have start selection here. So what's going on here is this menu item is selected, a variable is saved, perform is called, it does its thing. Same thing with city 2, and then radio buttons are selected here, and buttons are selected here, and then immediately a button is selected, actually I put the code before the button is selected, amazing, it performs right header A. So what does right header A do? Right header A is part of every report, and that prints the header, the time. Where is the report here? So we have, it writes the time, the date, the time here, which is this. Oh, this is becoming unmanageable. Okay, update the time, and that's where it stops. And my name, of course, and ABAP airline project GUI version, and that's it. Now the second part starts after the button is selected, because this information here tells us which button was selected. And so when we now go to button select, so when we say when all flights, perform all flights, and so on and so forth, and we looked at all flights, and we saw that a bunch of functions were called by a function. Control F. Okay, so we go down, here we go. I do apologize, this is a bit like spaghetti. Okay, oops. So yeah, so this is it. So we can in fact look at all 4 buttons. So this is the separate code called by all 4 buttons. All flights, so it does right header all of them do that, and then the different buttons run their own queries, and they all write different reports. You will notice that the report writer for all flights is different from the report writer for the rest, and that's because they all have something in common. Like I explained in the earlier part of this presentation. The other flights have to order the records and select just the first item, and so that's why they do have something in common. Again, when you reuse code, your code is simpler, I think. And so the queries are different, but the report writer is the same. So here you go, you have write header all, and that this part is what the header produces, and then get data does the query talking to the database, and then the report writer spits this part out. And so we can go to write header all, control copy, control F again. I should just make a note of the lines, code lines. Okay, so this is what happens here. We toggle the color of the text, and we say report on information. See here, report on information related to bought cell button. So bought cell is a variable, and it stores the name of the button that was selected, which I showed earlier. And then, so when we look at the report here, oops, so that's we have here the bought cell button. Okay, I'm moving on, and then I write airline. So we now have here, this is produced here. Again, I'm sure we're very familiar with this. Skip 20 spaces for formatting so things look pretty, and you're using green text. Airline, all airlines, because you selected all airlines. Now if you selected perhaps Lufthansa, Singapore Airlines, we would have airline Singapore Airlines, and so on and so forth. Then we have class. Now this is the variable holding the class, so when we look here, it simply spits it out. Duration, so that would be whether it's same day or overnight. Destination from, destination to, that's Singapore to Rome, the selections we made. And then I went ahead to create the table header because that didn't depend on data. And so all this, which we have met in the previous exercise, simply creates the red bar, creates this red bar. So we have carrier ID, connection ID, city from, city to, flight time, and then the D/N, daytime or nighttime, departure time, arrival time, price, and that's it. So that is created by this code, which we have used previously. And so that's all this form does. And so if we move on, where were we? We should have taken a note of it. So we have write header all, and then we'll look for the next place we wrote it. So yes, we are back to all flights. So we've covered what that does, and now we'll go to get data. Now I would like to explain all the queries in one shot, because note they all get data, get data, get data. So they're simply running queries. So if we go to the first, oops, I didn't put that. Okay, so we will note here, so these are all the queries. So I would collapse all these so that we can take a look at them one after the other. So all flights. So what it does is the syntax we have looked at in a previous video. We have made a selection of the fields we are of interest. This is the only new field we have introduced. Please, if this is not clear, we can look at a prior video. So we select all these fields, and then the only thing of note here is the where statement. So we do not want to select all the cities, we just want to select those from the particular city we are coming from and those from the particular city we are going to. That's it. I didn't order it. I didn't think there was a need for it. And so, but what does the else mean? Note that this code runs if we select all flights. This code runs if we select a particular airline. So this is for selecting a particular airline. So it's all the same thing, and the only difference is that we have also added where, the where statement. So in addition to where all this, which is all here, we have also introduced this. So we've also said, don't give us everything, just give us the ones with the airline we are interested in. And that's the only difference between the two. Now, for all the others, I have also written the code that way. If all is selected, and if all is selected, or if a particular airline is selected. And again, for earliest flight, we have the whole table, and we just ordered by the criteria in question, which is order by departure time for earliest flight, order by departure time, order by departure time, order by departure time. And then for quickest flight, which is here, we have again same code, ordered by flight time, ordered by flight time, which tells us how long the flight takes. And then for the cheapest flight, same code, we have simply ordered by price, ordered by price. And so all of them, or all the last three, ordered the report, and then the report writer simply picked the first item, whereas for all flights it picked all items. So again, if we go back to all flights, find next. Okay, so happened. Okay, so the next step is the report writer, which is this. Come on. Okay, which is this. So what happens in the report writer? We already have the red pink bar. All that is left is to populate the table, and it goes through a loop here. So we have collected the data, we have a record set, and then we loop through the record set, writing each item and counting as we go along. And that's all she wrote. I have maintained 2 counters because you would notice that in the screen you have daytime and you also have nighttime. So assuming that our report shows all cities, then all flights, then the first counter will maintain a record of all the flights and the record set, and the second counter will maintain a record of all those that met our criteria. So for daytime, for instance, so if we were trying to select for daytime, this would be the first counter, and then if the period is equal to that, where this represents either daytime or nighttime, then this counter will be incremented, and this will be the specific requirement will be reached in either daytime or nighttime. It will write it out, and so just loop through, and that's it. And then this is just, actually it was initially for troubleshooting, but I decided to keep it. It tells me how many records I had. It tells me so if nothing was reported, I say if it's not equal to 0, it says that, else it says there are no records for this selection. And it's pretty much the same logic, except that here we have also kept 2 counters, but here, because I only want the first item, I am checking to make sure if I put an if statement, and if the record exceeds 2, if it exceeds count second, if it gets to the second count, it should simply quit the loop and not write anymore. So only 1 item gets written here, and then the table ends, the report ends. And that's the same for all the other reports for earliest, cheapest, quickest. And so that's pretty much the code. And now to the interface. This video has run a bit long, and so I would introduce that in another interface, in another video. Thank you for listening, and I will see you again soon, hopefully.